I want to talk to you guys about Korean cinema. South Korean, that is. I'm not all too familiar with North Korean cinema, besides The Interview. As some of you might know, I actually adore Korean movies. I've made a video about the highly regarded Vengeance trilogy. I've covered some of them during my most disturbing movies and the scariest movies series. And I've mentioned a few during random recommendations and movie collection updates. See, the thing is, in the last 15 years or so, basically since the turn of the century, the millennium, the South Korean film industry has been kind of booming. And I could go into the whole history of Korean cinema, but I actually much rather just talk about the movies themselves. And at least in this part, because I am planning on making this a series. And this first part is going to be about the movies of Bong, Joon, and get used to that because I am gonna mispronounce basically every name in all of these videos. But I am gonna do it consistently, you know, with the family name first, because that's how they roll in Korea, right? Also, don't think that I'm trying to act like an expert here, because I really am not. Really, I'm just a fan. And I thought it would be cool to share some of these movies with you guys, you know, in case you're not familiar with them. And if you are, we can always just have like a little conversation like going on in the comments, whatnot. So, Bong Joon-ho. After directing a few shorts and working odd jobs for other filmmakers, he made his feature-length directorial debut with, well, you know what they say, barking dogs never bite. Besides directing, he also co-wrote the screenplay. And well, this movie basically already shows his eye for originality and detail. And well, definitely his use of dark comedy, which will be a very consistent theme throughout all of his movies. You know, his whole career. So, let's see. Asking someone what this movie is about is kind of a mean thing to do, because what is this movie about? If you read any short plot description, you know, like on IMDb or the back of any release, it'll most likely tell you that it is about a man who's annoyed by a barking dog somewhere in his apartment complex and decides to take some drastic measures. Which is kinda true, I mean, that does happen, but I feel like that's not really what this movie is about. If anything, it's about chasing success, and then also the question if success actually brings happiness. Director Bong, he usually has some underlying social commentary running through his movies, and I feel like in this movie it's really about the obsession for wanting to achieve success, you know, being successful. And that's great and all, but what do you get as a viewer? Well, I actually feel like this movie almost just plays as a bunch of small vignettes that together make up the whole movie, if that makes sense. For example, there's this funny little scene where the main character, this unemployed college professor, is having an argument with his bitchy wife about how far back the convenience store is, and then they make this bet over it. It's quite irrelevant, but it's fun. The other main character that we follow in this movie is this girl who works at some sort of post office or something. That was never really clear to me. Anyway, here she notices a lot of people bringing missing dog posters. And then eventually the path of these two characters cross, but the girl doesn't know that the man is responsible for those missing dogs. Yeah, if you love dogs, you might get a little upset with the main character, because he obviously doesn't. It is kind of a problem though, because this really sort of makes the main character, you know, quite unlikable. As well as his annoying wife, Jesus. That definitely doesn't help the movie. But I'd still say it's worth checking out. It might lack in focus, I feel like there's perhaps too much going on that doesn't really lead to anything, but it's fun in a somewhat odd way. And don't worry guys, no dogs were harmed during the production of this movie. Or, well, that's what it says here, I believe. I mean, that's what the subtitle said. Anyway, definitely not his best movie, but it sure as hell is original. Perhaps a little too slow and maybe a little too long. And that's, you know, like I said, it just kind of lacks focus, and it mostly feels as a bunch of separate vignettes like thrown together. But still, I like it. But if you're still like, oh, I'm not impressed with his so-called Korean cinema, well, luckily for you, his next movie is actually widely regarded to be one of the best Korean movies ever made. And that, of course, is Memories of Murder from 2003, so wow, well, let's take a look. It's obvious that director Bong, who again also co-wrote the screenplay, got to work with a bigger budget here, as this is simply just a much bigger movie. Here we also witness the start of Bong's professional relation with actor Song Gang-ho, who became a bit of a big star in the previous years, most notably for his performance in JSA, directed by the guy who brought us the Vengeance trilogy. Here, in this movie, he plays Detective Park. It's the mid-80s, and there's a string of murders that seem to be the work of one serial killer. Park is put on the case, but he and his colleague are so incompetent, really to a comedic degree. For example, he figures that, well, since there's no traces of pubic hair on the raped and murdered victims, the killer must be bald down there. So he goes to a sauna to look for guys who are bald down there. It's quite professional. Eventually they're joined by Seo, a detective from Seoul, Jesus Christ, who has a much more professional approach, and he's really like, dude, these guys suck. And well, that's basically the whole story. We follow this inept, unethical police squad trying to solve a murder mystery. One that's based on the actual, real-life, unsolved murder mystery. So, what makes this movie so well beloved? It's a good question. I think mostly just because it's very well made. It all adds up. The acting, the cinematography, the music, the pacing, it all fits so well. If anything though, in my opinion, it might be a little too long at over 2 hours. But on the other hand, this somewhat slow, or perhaps not even slow, maybe rather calm pacing, it works pretty well. Especially in combination with the cinematography, which shows us a lot of well-composed, single long take shots. Even the action scenes are calm, if you will, but still very cool. It's so awesome to see fight scenes like this without those zoomed in shots and fast cuts, you know? In the end, it's just a quite captivating murder mystery, often referred to as one of the best serial killer movies out there. A serial killer movie that's seriously funny, but at the same time just as much pretty sad and melancholic, especially towards the ending. From what I understand, there's this whole underlaying theme going on, you know, where this movie is a commentary of sorts on how Korea was running in the 80s. But since I'm more or less completely unaware of the political state of South Korea at that time, or well, any time for that matter, all of this was pretty much lost on me. Still doesn't ruin the experience at all. You can also just watch the movie like what you see is what you get, like a great murder mystery. Really, it still is a fantastic movie. Like I said, in my opinion, a little too long perhaps, like a little slow at times, but still definitely worth checking out. And so it was also a huge success in South Korea itself. Really, the movie was met with almost universal like critical acclaim, and it ended up being one of the most watched South Korean movies at the time. And all of this was of course good news for director Bong, because this kind of led him to be able to make his next movie, perhaps his most commercially successful Korean movie, from 2006, The Host. Oh, this one, The Host. Let's see. You like obvious backstories? How about a monster movie where the opening scene shows a guy dumping toxic waste down the drain that ends up in the river? Nice. After this, we once again meet Song Gang-ho, playing the role of this simple-minded, somewhat slacker type of dude who works at this little snack bar alongside this big river. That big river, you know, from the beginning. So then one day, oh shit, a big-ass monster appears from the river and starts trashing the place. Eventually, the monster also takes the guy's daughter, and well, after first assuming that she's dead, he finds out that she's still alive, somewhere in the sewers, and then, together with his father and siblings, goes out and tries to rescue her. How sweet. So, one of the first things that's often brought up when it comes to The Host is the creature. Specifically, how it looks. And sure, the monster looks cool, but the CGI is quite dated. Or perhaps it was just never all that good to begin with. And while I have to admit that this was quite distracting for me at first, since you know, he often looks so obviously artificially added, like he doesn't appear to have any physical weight, like he's obviously not really there. But it didn't ruin anything for me. It's really something you should be able to look past, because there is actually a pretty cool movie going on here.
it doesn't waste any time. Within 10 minutes we get to see the monster, and I love how there's no like slow reveal like towards the end. You just get to see him like all together. It's really just like boom, broad daylight, here's the monster, deal with it. It's like the movie knows you're familiar with monster movies and therefore goes the extra mile to be surprising and unexpected. And we get some great characters. I like them. They all have their flaws, but as a team they work pretty well. Even the kids, they gave some pretty strong performances in my opinion. Yeah, compared to his previous two movies, this one is definitely more faster paced and more action packed, showing that he's not all about slow burners.
Yeah, not bad. Just look beyond the shitty effects and, well, you definitely have a very entertaining and at points even quite touching monster movie. And, well, with this being a Bong Joon-ho movie, you could read into this whole underlying message, of course, where the monster represents American or, like Western imperialism. And, where the whole movie is sort of like a satire or, like critical on Western or like American politics. Which, with certain scenes, is actually a little obvious. But still, it's just nice that this movie works both ways. You can enjoy it for just what you see, just like a fun, like action-packed monster movie. But at the same time, you could also just read into it a little more and see it as like a social commentary. It's nice that you have that option, but either way, it is worth checking out. After The Host, Bong kinda went back to basic and wrote direct a darkly comic, comedic crime drama, along the lines of Memories of Murder, but this time simply called Mother. Let's take a look. Because, hey, nothing beats a loving, caring mother, right? Although some might go a little overboard in their protectiveness. Meet the titular mother, who, after her somewhat intellectually disabled son is being accused of murder, goes the extra mile to prove his innocence. And, well, that's the setup. It's simple, it's sweet, and it has a lot of potential. I'm actually always quite intrigued for some reason by these somewhat obsessive mother-son relationships. As a theme in movies. Which is also the reason that this one is definitely among my favorite of the director's work. Although, I do kinda have the same problem with this movie as I have with Memories of Murder, and that is that with a running time of over 2 hours, it might just be a little too long and, throughout a little slow. Then again, also like with Memories of Murder, the music, the cinematography, the performances, especially by the mother, they all quite help in distracting you from these perhaps shortcomings. I love how, once again, the comedy and drama are so well balanced in this movie. And really, when I say comedy, expect it to be like pitch black. Because in the end, it's still a story about a quite serious murder case and an overprotective mother who goes to extreme lengths to make sure that her son will be released. But really, in the end, the irony of it all, which I can't really explain since I want to keep the spoilers to a minimum, but really, it's all just morbidly funny. From what I understand, the whole movie can also be read as a satire on the role of the mother in Korean family or just Korean culture in general. Which, like with basically all of his movies, once again went right over my head. But still, the fact that all of his movies, even after watching, are still interesting, when you decide to like read into them a little bit, I highly appreciate that. So, despite this definitely not being his most popular movie, I myself, I'm actually a big fan. So I guess it goes without saying that I do recommend this one as well. Just keep in mind that it might be a little long, a little slow. It's like, I feel like I'm saying that with every one of these movies that I've covered so far. In general, I just noticed that like Korean movies, I feel like they like to take their time, which definitely isn't a bad thing. It's just like something to keep in mind, well, when you go into these type of movies. But it might be a little slow, but definitely worth checking out. And well, that brings us to the last movie in this video on this list. The most recent movie that Bong directed, his most expensive movie, and his English language debut, Snowpiercer. If you're not all that familiar with Korean cinema, Korean movies, then there's still a chance that you might have heard about this one, since from what I understand this movie had a much wider release, like outside of Korea. Well, let's see.
the government tried to act against global warming by controlling the climate, but this didn't really work out all that well, since they accidentally created a new ice age. Dang it. Now it's the year 2031, and for the last 17 years, the last remaining people on Earth are stuck on this train that just goes on and on and on. And this train, it's divided in different sections, classes, if you will. And in this movie, we follow the people located at the very end of the train, the so-called low-life scum of the Earth. Or, well, train. Fortunately for these people, one of them is Captain America, who sorta stands up as the leader in this potential revolution against the elite people located in the front of the train. And, well, that's the movie. We basically just follow him and his comrades as they try to work their way to the front of the train. It's an interesting idea, based on this French graphic novel from the early 80s, but come on guys, it's also a little silly, isn't it? Really, one of the first things I asked myself while watching this movie was, why a train? I mean, sure, it's somewhat explained in the movie, but I feel like it just doesn't really hold up. There must have been a better way, like a better solution to this whole ice age problem. As well as dividing the people up in different classes. Really, that's not really doing the last remaining people on Earth any good, now is it? And I get why it's shown this way. I mean, out of all of Bong's movies, the social commentary in this one is at least a little obvious. A little too obvious, but hey. Still, it's just quite an unbelievable world to me. You know, what's depicted in this movie. It's... what? So, this movie met almost universal acclaim, but I don't get it. Like, I don't see it. Really, I thought it was mostly just silly. And not silly in a Bong trademark darkly comedic kind of way. Just silly. The acting fell off, the CGI looked super cheesy, and whereas I've come to expect nicely shot and choreographed fighting scenes in Korean movies, here we just get the old generic zoomed in fast cut type of deal. Although, in all honesty, some of the action sequences were pretty cool, were interesting. I don't know. I mean, I wish I liked it better. I mean, the concept, if you don't overthink it, it is pretty cool. But for me, the whole movie, it was mostly just silly, and a lot of stuff just didn't make any sense to me. It was cool though to see Song Gang-ho again, and the girl who played his daughter in The Host. That was nice, and I actually quite enjoyed Tilda Swinton's over-the-top ridiculous character. And well, I gotta at least acknowledge the pretty damn cool art, you know, the production design. That's one cool-ass looking train. But besides all of that, not my favorite.
It's kind of a shame to end this video with a movie that I myself didn't really care about. Then again, that also that they could just be me, you know. Like I said, like almost everybody seems to love this movie. So if what you've seen, you know, like what I sort of like try to explain about this movie, still if all of that seemed interesting to you, be sure to check it out. And well, that brings us to the end of this video, this first exploration of Korean cinema. Like I said, I have more videos like this planned. There's definitely more like directors that I would like to take a look at, like at their movies, but also perhaps, you know, just a video where I take a look at some random Korean movies. It's all good. So please let me know what you thought of this video and the idea of perhaps turning this into a series. I don't know, like, what do you guys think? Let me know, and then, well, we'll see each other next time. Cheers.